Welcome to Your Mac Life, show number 923, I think. Someone correct me on that. 923. Yes, we'll go with that. February 19th, 2014. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Hopefully you all had a lovely, wonderful Valentine's Day last week. I was going to say, there was a thing with the SIG and Little SIG. There's this thing called an onomastico. And Sly, I don't know if you know this because you used to be Catholic. There's at least for Italian Catholics, this thing called a name day. And when you're born, some families will also assign you a saint's day. And Little Sig's saint's day is Valentine's Day, which is kind of nice. So it's called an onomastico. And she gets little presents, and it's sort of like a second birthday for Italian kids. It's kind of cool. You get 2 birthdays a year. So we celebrated onomastico with the Little Sig last Friday. Gave her a little card and some candy and things like that. It's hard to find Valentine's Day cards for an adult to give to a kid because there's that fine line of creepy. You know, there's that razor thin edge. And if you step over it, man, you're in trouble with mom. Boy, but I got lucky. I got a great little card for her that said how wonderful a kid she was, and it had little sticky hearts that she could peel off and stick to other things, and she liked it. So, Hiker says Ukraine does as well. Okay, I didn't know that. I want to say a big thank you to the folks who were. This is the 1 month. Sorry, in 1 month, on March 19th, we are doing the 20th anniversary of Macintosh Internet podcasting, broadcasting, whatever it might be. 20 years ago, a month from now, I did the very, 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 very first Macintosh Apple-focused broadcast, which is, I think, kind of cool. And you guys, the audience, has encouraged me to celebrate this, so I'm celebrating along with a bunch of great companies. I want to say thanks to the folks at padandquill.com who are giving away 2 little pocket books for iPhone 5. Boink Software is giving away 1 each of iStop Motion for the Mac, Photomagico and Boinks TV. The folks at TakeControlBooks.com, Tidbits, are giving away a 1-year subscription to the entire Take Control library. Tom Bin is giving away one of their Synapse 25 backpacks. The folks at Glovely are giving away 5 pairs of Glovely classic touchscreen gloves. Smile Software is giving away 1 PDF Pen family pack and Text Expander for Mac and iOS family pack. The nice folks at Mac Fun are giving away 3 creative kits, a bundle consisting of Snap Heal Pro and Intensify Pro. Scotty Vest are giving away a Sev Pack jacket. Danny P is giving away one of their iPhone 5 leather wallet cases in black. Pixelmator is giving away 5 copies of Pixelmator software. Topaz Labs is giving away a complete collection of photography enhancement and editing software. That's almost $400 for the software. Primo Vista is giving away a bamboo iPhone 5 case and 2 bamboo iPhone speakers. Everdock Fuse Design is giving away 2 Everdocks. Connex is giving away 10 iPhone wallets. Nifty Drives is giving away 2 Nifty Drives. Backblaze is giving away 3 1-year unlimited, completely unlimited online backup subscriptions to Backblaze. We've got a couple other companies who are coming on board too, and hopefully more in the next month. So as always, beginning of March, you can do it now if you want. If you are not a subscriber to Your Mac Life, at the beginning of March 1st, or anytime before the 19th, go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. At the top of the page, click on the link to the entry form, fill in the entry form. It'll send me an email. We'll put your name in the virtual hat. But if you forget in March, you're out of luck. But if you subscribe to Your Mac Life for $2, $5, $10, $15, you can do it right now. Money comes out of your major credit card. And I'll put your name in the hat for you. So you don't got to worry about it. You don't got to forget. And also, thanks to a secret Santa who just popped up just a few minutes ago, because he says that, we haven't been giving away anything on the show. And it's like, yeah, I keep forgetting. He or she may have already ruined it, is giving away cold, hard cash once a week from now until the anniversary show, $50 a night. Yes, $50 a night. I'll save this for you guys who are listening to the show live because you get to be the first ones to sign up for this. So if you haven't signed up for the free entry form, do it now because you might win $50 tonight. Thank you very much, Secret Santa. You know who you are. And I certainly appreciate you doing that for the Your Mac Life show audience. On tonight's show, we talked to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about the Tesla rumors, talk about Facebook and WhatsApp, talking about just a whole bunch of stuff that's happened in the past week in the Macintosh, Apple, iOS community. We're also going to be talking about the Olympics, a little bit about the Olympics. There's a disturbing picture on Twitter that I found of a mental image of Jim Dalrymple in a speed skating suit. You know, no one really needs to see that, so I'll take that off the screen. My apologies for that. But no offense to Jim. But even bigger news, I got the opportunity, the great honor of speaking yesterday to documentarian Ken Burns, the guy who's done the baseball documentary and the Central Park 5 documentary and an upcoming Vietnam documentary and just dozens of things. Amazing. Civil War, jazz, World War II, all kinds of just incredible documentaries. And the guy who the Ken Burns effect is actually named after, although Mosquito will pop up and say he wasn't the first one to do it. I agree, Mosquito. But so I did a pre-recorded interview with him yesterday, and we'll talk to him about his new iOS app, iPad app, called the Ken Burns app. It's available for free on the iTunes store. You can go download it right now on the iTunes store. Do a search for Ken Burns and the app will pop up. Really cool app. It's a $10 app. You can download for free. You get about 30 minutes of free stuff, get a sense of what the app will provide for you. But if you're a fan of Ken Burns, now it's not all his documentaries. It's a very interesting way of looking at the timeline of his documentaries and how they sort of fit in and overlap with each other. Hopefully you'll enjoy the interview. I had a great time talking to him for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes yesterday, and then for another almost hour afterwards, after the tape had stopped rolling. Great, interesting, funny guy to talk to. I actually got him to promise never to make a certain kind of documentary. He actually promised me he wouldn't do it, which I think is so cool of him. You'll hear that on the interview. The Olympics are still ongoing. I'm still enjoying them. As I was saying in the pre-show, that screen you see behind me is almost 24/7 Olympics. Every sport that's on, whether it's on NBC or TSN or Sportsnet or NBC or CBC, whatever, I'm watching it, damn it. I'm watching cross-country skiing. Yes, I'm watching guys jogging in the snow. Ski jumping. Admit it. The only reason we watch ski jumping is we want to see someone fall. Because otherwise ski jumping is really quite boring. It's really actually quite uninteresting. But it turns out cross-country skiing can also be pretty physical too. There's a lot of bumping and banging and trading paint in cross-country skiing. But still, it's been confirmed again for me, these Olympics. Short track speed skating, oh my God, what an insane sport. I love short track speed skating. Canada's doing well. Yay us, patting ourselves on the back. We've won several golds. I want to say it's less about the gold. Getting gold is great, but I always like to see when you hear people doing personal bests. I saw a bunch of folks out in doing the two-man, two-woman, two-person bobsled today, and it was great to see scores. They were saying, "Oh, this is the best they've done. They've improved every single time," and I love seeing, no matter what the sport or what the country, I love seeing athletes at the end of their event running into the stands, whether they've won gold, silver, bronze, whatever it might be, and going into the stands, going in the crowd, and hugging and sharing that moment with family and friends. It's such a wonderful, wonderful sight, because you know those people are the ones who sacrificed so much to get that athlete where they were. Whether it's a hockey mom or dad who got up at 3:30 in the morning when the kid was 10 to take him to the rink, whether it was a figure skating mom who drove 100 miles one way to take the kid to a competition, whether it was the snowboarding dad who took their kid to the mountain first thing in the morning and bought him new snowboards. And not everyone is going to win. There's only 3 medals given out. But it's great to see that you know that everyone has tried their absolute hardest. I saw the great story, the giant slalom yesterday. This woman from Thailand, competed in the giant slalom, dead last. just completely dead last. She wasn't going to get anywhere close. She was 50 seconds out of first place. I would say I could almost beat her, but she was there. She was representing her country, her little tiny country, and it was so cool to see that. There was a cross-country event where I can't remember who the guy was that was last, but it was another one of those guys that was just representing his country. He has no chance of winning. And the gold medal winner was waiting for the guy at the finish line to give him a hug. This was a half hour after the Norwegian, who kick ass in cross-country skiing, half hour after he had won his gold medal. Wherever he was, he came back to high five and hug this other cross-country skier. It's great. It was great. Great story. MacMan says, can we kick that reporter who did that interview with Bodie Miller in the junk? No, because Bodie Miller himself said that interview was okay. Bodie Miller said he brought up the idea of the conversation of his brother and how emotional he was. Bodie said on Twitter and on interviews, he's known that reporter for years. He had no problem with that interview. He just broke down in the heat and the emotion of the moment. He broke down. It had nothing to do with the interview, and Bodie Miller said that, and good for him that he stepped up and tried to deflect some of the heat off the NBC reporter. MacMan says, sounds like the Jamaican bobsled team. Has the Jamaican bobsled team become a joke? Yeah, it's always been funny, but it seemed like the first time they did this, I think it was in '88 in Calgary, they were actually more serious about it than this time. This time it just seemed like, been there, done that. And the other thing is, I'm surprised we haven't seen other countries do this. Where's the Maldives bobsled team? Where are those guys from other countries like this? I wasn't even paying attention to the Jamaican bobsled team this year. I didn't care very much. We were talking in the pre-show a little bit about the idea of how dangerous some of these sports are because of the conditions, so much more different than the Summer Olympics, where the track in the Summer Olympics is the same for everyone. But in skiing, for example, downhill skiing, the track can change, the mountain can change, the snow can change, the weather can change from skier to skier. And it's kind of interesting monkey wrench into the idea of the competition, which I kind of like. I see we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop and loopinsight.com in the Google Hangout room. Let me see if I can't get Jim in here. Jim, let me pull this out, plug this into here so I can hear Jim. And there's Jim there. Jim, can you hear me?
How you doing?
Yeah, good. I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you. How you doing?
Good. I want that $50, man.
I won't put an entry form in like anybody else. Are you actually watching the video?
Yeah. You didn't know I was at the Olympics, did you? I flew home just for this call.
Yeah, you would have also had to lose 100 pounds to fit in that suit. If someone made you, if they forced you on pain of death of you and your family, what's the one Olympic sport that you would participate in?
That I would participate in?
Yes.
Hockey.
So you think you could jump over the boards?
Well, I played hockey for 100 years.
Yeah. Okay. I guess for most Canadians. See, I would have picked bobsled because
yeah,
I can push.
Bobsled would be good too.
I can push, jump in the back, and hide. That I can do. That would. And you said you already done that, haven't you?
Well, no, I did the ones in Alberta. It's not like that enclosed thing. It's a special one. It was in the summertime, where you go down a track. So they tried to make it as safe as you can make it going down a mountain. They tried to make it safe. But.
That's right. A snow-covered mountain. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So I tried that, but yeah, I would totally do. I'd just jump over the boards and fight the first guy that came along. I mean,
punch that Latvian goalie in the face. Man, he was good.
God, he was good.
God, I mean, just like you hate to see it against your guys, but he was standing. He almost lost his lunch there in the third period, didn't he?
I know. He was so dehydrated that they had to stop the game.
I thought for sure he was going to throw up right there on the ice.
Yeah. So, you know, lots of respect for him.
Oh, absolutely.
That was incredible.
I'm glad we won because we would have been really pissed off at him if we hadn't. But yeah, he played an amazing game. $149 million worth of NHL talent, and that guy's getting pucks.
And this guy plays in the AHL.
And the second string, he was the backup on the Latvian team.
Yeah, he was the backup. The only reason that he even made it in the net is because the full-time goalie got hurt. The ball boy got hurt. The guy that carries the pucks got hurt. You know, everybody got hurt, so they threw him in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just it's craziness. But
if you could win the tournament MVP for one game, I'd give it to him.
You know, it's interesting. You were saying a few minutes ago about people setting their personal bests, and you know, we're all sitting there in Canada. We're all sitting back in our chairs, you know, clapping and saying, "Oh, you did your personal best," and they finished 49. And, you know, we're still clapping and saying, yeah, but the Canadian hockey team gets up against one of the best goalies that we've seen in years, and we're bitching at them.
Oh,
we're
hell yeah.
Screaming at them. I was screaming at the TV. You morons! Score!
How did you miss that? He's right in, for Christ's sake!
and here's this cross-country skier that, you know, did her personal best, and we're all happy, even though she finished, you know, like 3 hours past when the leader finished.
Yep, that's right.
God. Yeah, I'm telling you, I said it before, we just have no patience for losing in hockey. Yeah, and absolutely. I was mad after the game. I was happy for the Latvian goalie, but I was mad after the game that I strongly believe that Canada is the best hockey players in the world, and we cannot score. And I was getting angry.
Yep. The announcer of the Canadian game, who's announced a lot of Vancouver Canucks games, I can't remember his name right now, but at one point in the third period, he said, you could hear the smirk in his voice. He said, "Are you nervous, Canada?" And I was yelling at the TV, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!"
Yeah. I was going to mute him if he kept going.
Okay, because he was just poking the bear. Like, dude, don't jinx this. Do not jinx this.
I mean, a couple of times I was on the Travelocity website. Let's see, Sochi. Yeah, you know, grab my skates and my hockey stick and go on over.
We were talking about this. We missed you last week, and I wanted to bring this up last week. But on last week's show, I think the day before, you and I were chatting on Twitter about the 10K cross-country sprint.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
And I'm thinking, sprint for 10K? What are you, insane?
Yeah. Oh, you know, the other sport that I really came to like, I think it's the first time it's in the Olympics, was the snowboard cross.
No, that's been on for a few Olympics, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they have like this really narrow track, and then they put 6 snowboarders on it, and down the mountain they go, jumping over jumps, and the first one wins. It doesn't matter if you crash into somebody or not. That's your own tough luck. And people were flying everywhere off course, and oh my God, it was hilarious.
It was. That's my second favorite Olympic sport behind short track speed skating.
Oh, speed skating is on. But the great thing about speed skating is just like hockey. I mean, you can slide into the boards with your skate first and, you know, hurt somebody.
Yeah, yeah. The cross-country skiing sprint thing, I remember thinking, a 10-kilometer sprint? I have literally never run further in my life. I've never run so far in my life where I can't see where I started running.
Yeah,
you know, it's 100 yards, I think, is my max. I can always turn around and look behind me and see where I started running because I'll stop before I go much further.
A sprint to me is getting to the kitchen.
Exactly. I can't imagine 10 kilometers of sprinting on frickin' snow.
Gee.
All right, let's move on from this one. The rumor last week that just got so much traction that just blew my mind was that Tesla was going to get bought by Apple. What do you think of this?
Well, I couldn't see it happening, but
do you think it? Okay, let's break it down. It's a single source story from San Francisco Herald. Do you believe the meeting happened that Apple's mergers and acquisitions guys met with Tesla?
Well, I don't know that. I wouldn't doubt that a meeting with Tesla happened.
No,
because there's a lot of different things that these guys could talk about.
Yep.
But just because they met doesn't mean that it was about, Apple buying them.
Yeah. I think a lot of people
could have been about integrating the iPhone in the car. Who knows?
I think a lot of people misrepresent or misunderstand what mergers and acquisitions is. They think of it as the Wall Street term, where that's the guy who goes up and buys other companies. That's not necessarily true at Apple, and I agree with you. I don't doubt that there was talks. I mean, Apple talks to a lot of people all the time.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, while this happened in the spring, this was just leaked by somebody, and I got to believe it's somebody at Tesla, this past weekend to the San Francisco Chronicle. It's somebody trying to prime the pump for something, and someone on the Tesla side, whether it's a stock bump or whatever it might be. Apple did not leak this to San Francisco Chronicle. But I agree with you. I think it's more about putting iOS devices and connectivity and iOS software into Tesla vehicles than it is about Apple, for some bizarre reason, buying a car company. The logic of that just makes no sense. There's no reason for Apple to buy a car company.
I don't think so.
Especially when, if you did that, you would then piss off every other car company in the world. When all Apple needs and wants is to get connectivity, iOS connectivity, in cars, in Fords and Chevys and Corvettes and Toyotas and Mercedes. So why would you buy Tesla? That's left.
You gotta. I mean, let's say Apple was going to get in the car business. Would Apple buy GM? Well, no, because they suck.
Yeah.
They would go to somebody like Tesla. That's the type of company that they would go to.
Mm-hmm.
Environmentally friendly, very cool. Tesla's like the Apple of cars.
Do you think that this will come of anything, that no matter whether it's a buyout again, which we don't think is going to happen, do you think we'll hear an announcement in 6 months' time that Apple's doing something with Tesla? Because I think what a lot of folks, more insider than I am, have said is that this is more about battery technology than it is about cars.
Yeah, it could be that too. Apple's got some great battery technology, so does Tesla.
I think that's more likely if the two companies are working in some way, shape, or form to talk about that than anything else that other people are trying to dream up or make up on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, it could very well be.
Earlier this afternoon, it was turned out to Facebook to buy WhatsApp for $16 billion. Jim, had you ever heard of WhatsApp before today?
Yeah, I have, but I don't use it. I mean, really, $16 billion for an app?
Is that too much?
Come on.
It's about the same monetary value per user as Microsoft paid for other companies, as Google has paid for other companies. The number, it's Ben Bajarin tweeted that it's about $40 per user acquisition fee, which is in line with other companies. So that number is in line. I think we're focused on the $16 billion in cash and stock that sort of blows our mind.
Yeah, I'm going to focus on that. I don't care how big it is. I think that this stuff should be cut off at like 20 million.
you can't sell any company for more than 20 million bucks.
20 million. Once you, I mean, then it starts to get ridiculous.
Yeah,
$16 billion.
Yep.
I mean, that's just stupid. It's stupid.
It's interesting to read how a lot of folks don't think this is about messaging so much. I think it's about Facebook just trying to bolt on as many things as they possibly can to Facebook.com. I can't see this being something that most Facebook users would want to use.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly a lot of it. They're trying, just what you said, they're trying to bolt on as much as they can.
Do you think it's going to work?
Because no, I don't think. At some point, when you look at industries like the car industry or the guitar industry, I mean, Gibson owns a ton of brands, Fender owns a ton of brands,
yep.
And then there's some independent people. Now you go out and buy a guitar and you think that, oh, I don't like Fender, so I'm going to buy a Jackson. Well, Fender owns Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to buy, a Charvel. Well, they own that too. I mean, these big companies own everything, and that's kind of what's happening with Facebook and, Google, the way that they're snapping up companies is that eventually they're just going to own everything.
It just seems that it doesn't make a lot of sense from a direction of Facebook, and it more seemingly about let's grab as many users doing everything as we possibly can. We'll figure out how to make money off of those users at some point in the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, they see something that's popular. I mean, Instagram is a good example of that.
Yep.
They see something that's popular, and that's what they want, and
as Brian Monroe says in the RC chat room, they want to make sure they do not miss out on the next big thing. Instead of predicting what the next big thing is, or like Apple, creating the next big thing, they're sort of throwing everything against the wall and hoping the next big thing sticks for them.
Well, and I don't think that any of these will be the next big thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the next big thing isn't something that's already available.
Yeah.
It's something that we haven't heard of yet.
Speaking of haven't heard of yet, South by Southwest is famous for those kinds of things, and Apple has announced that they've listened to me. You and I talked about this when you went over to London for the iTunes Festival, that we were wondering why Apple had never done this before in the United States, and now they have. At South by Southwest next March 11th to 15th in Austin, they're going to be doing the American version of the iTunes Festival, smaller show, only 5 nights with, I think, about 5 or 10 bands, including Coldplay, Imagine Dragons, Pitbull, Keith Urban, Zedd, and apparently a Jim Dalrymple fan favorite, Willie Nelson.
Willie, baby. Willie.
You're a fan, are you?
I love Willie Nelson. I mean, really, I Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and those, I mean, they are legends. Willie Nelson is a legend. It doesn't matter what type of music you like, nothing. Willie Nelson. I mean, come on, you put on Willie Nelson at a party or anything, people will be all over it.
There's only one Willie Nelson song that I like.
What?
You Are Always on My Mind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's not even his. That's a cover of an original, and I think his version blows away the cover. But otherwise, I don't know much about or care much about Willie Nelson.
Yeah, well.
He'll perform live March 15th, 11:45 p.m. Will you be in Austin, Texas at that moment in time?
I hope to be. I really want to go.
Why wouldn't you just book? Why wouldn't you already book your ticket?
Well, you know.
Because I want you to go. I want you to be at South by Southwest because I want to see how badly you can freak out nerds.
Oh, I could do that.
Oh, I know, man. I mean, that's just, I would like to go down there and follow you around and just take pictures, not of you, but of people's nerd reactions to Jim Dalrymple. I think that'd just be hilarious. Have you ever been to South by Southwest?
No.
Have you ever, any interest in going? Is it something that is ever on your radar?
Yeah, sure. Because there's a lot of great music stuff, you know?
Yeah, people don't realize that the South by Southwest isn't just a geek show, that there is a movie and a music festival, a huge music festival that runs concurrently with all the other things, too. So if you're a music fan, South by Southwest is a great show, too.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we hear about it mostly because of the technology that comes out of South by Southwest. And I used to want to go until it turned into just this complete nerd circle jerk. That everything is the next greatest thing. Twitter came out of South by Southwest. There's a lot of technologies and companies that we know of now came out of South by Southwest. And some of them are a big deal. The vast majority of them aren't, though. There's a lot of interesting speakers there, a lot of interesting bands, but I think the overall madness of South by Southwest nowadays just doesn't do anything for me at all.
Well, yeah, there certainly is that.
And it's just gotten so big now that it's almost unwieldy, very much like a CES. It's sort of like the little brother of CES, but for straight technology plays. I just don't think it's for the average person worth it to go to CES anymore. Sorry, South by Southwest anymore.
Yeah, well, if I go, it would be, for a very specific thing. So
yeah,
that's
you think
a
it would
bit different.
You wouldn't go March 7th to 15th is South by Southwest Film. The South by Southwest Interactive is March 7th to 11th, so just before the iTunes Festival. Neil deGrasse Tyson will be speaking, Adam Savage. This is why I don't understand South by Southwest. Chelsea Clinton will be speaking at South by Southwest. Why? Who cares? I mean, seriously.
Clinton? Really?
Yeah, who cares?
Wow.
So you can go down and scare the hell out of her, too.
Well, that won't be hard. I just need to show up.
Mosquito says, how does that iTunes Festival work? Is it separate from South by Southwest attendance? Do you know, Jim?
As far as I know, yeah, that would be separate. I don't know for sure, but,
Yeah, no, do I.
this is, Apple's not going to give up any type of control.
Yeah. So you're sitting around waiting for your Apple invites. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think that Apple would send out invites for something like this.
Well, didn't you get an invite for the London one?
No.
Oh, geez, I thought you got invited up there to go hang out with Lady Gaga.
No. No.
Can we invite the CEO of BlackBerry to go pound sand?
Yes.
Chief Executive Officer of BlackBerry, John Chen, fired a salvo at T-Mobile in the U.S. on Tuesday, calling ill-conceived a promotion run by the company that encourages customers using BlackBerry smartphones to upgrade to iPhones. Whoa, poor baby. Poor the whiny baby.
That's just terrible, isn't it?
Put yourself in this place. I'm going to paint a word picture for you, Jim. You're in a pub in Windsor, Ontario. You're sitting in the corner by yourself, nursing a couple of Heinekens. CEO of BlackBerry, John Chen, comes in, looks around, sees you sitting there by yourself, comes over and sits down. He says, Jim, everything we're about to say is off the record. What do you say to the guy?
Bye.
You don't have any advice for this poor man?
Well, the advice, I think, is simple. Make a product that doesn't suck.
Yeah. I mean, you're your own punchline. My advice is, dude, you are your own punchline.
Yeah, shut up.
Yep.
And just make stuff that doesn't suck.
Exactly. Just, instead of saying that your partner in T-Mobile did an ill-conceived promotion, do something to make T-Mobile want to promote your product over someone else's. T-Mobile's in the business not of making BlackBerry happy. They're in the business of making money and selling phones.
Yep.
If they think they can make more money and sell more phones by promoting the iPhone over the BlackBerry, that's what they're going to do, you asshat.
It's just crazy. It really is.
I just don't understand why these companies that are in theory, and I say in theory in the strongest possible way, in theory run by smart people, can't see how dumb you sound by whining that T-Mobile is promoting other companies' products. What did you expect them to keep on promoting your shitty products? That makes no sense.
Well, and yet it keeps happening with them. Why is it that it's this one company that it keeps happening with? It's not, it doesn't shift around to Samsung, although, that's a whole other conversation. But, it's always BlackBerry.
Yep. Yep.
Why didn't BlackBerry come out and say, we think all our customers should switch to AT&T?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that, I think he should have just kept his mouth shut. But
Yep, I agree. Or
what do you,
said something along the lines of, we understand we love our patient, loyal customers, and we're coming up with some great products in the next 6 months. Please bear with us.
They've done that before, and they've screwed the pooch on it. So
Yep.
I don't think that people believe them.
I
The
agree.
best thing that he can do is just shut up.
Yep. Shut up and shut.
Come out with something that is decent that people want.
Yep. You posted an interesting story on the Loop. Become a better public speaker. You've publicly spoken on many occasions. You in front of thousands of people. Do you ever get nervous speaking in public?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I never get nervous. I love public speaking. I get excited.
I'm nervous right now.
Well, yeah, because you're talking to me. You never know what the hell's going to happen.
That's
Neither
right.
do I, for that matter. But for me, and here's the weirdest thing. I'm going to share this with just you, Jim. No one else listen.
All right.
I have this weird thing that just before I'm about to speak publicly, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, me too.
Like just literally 30 seconds before I'm going to go on stage or I turn these microphones on or whatever it might be, I have this really strong urge to go pee. It's just so
Yeah.
odd. But I love public speaking.
The most difficult thing that people don't understand, or one of them about public speaking, is, well, there's actually a couple things. You can't say all the time. That's a common one. But I think another common one that people have a hard time catching themselves in is really to slow down.
Yeah.
You have to be able to get your thoughts out there and do it in such a way that it's coming across in that conversational type way where, you're not saying, and now I'd really like to show you this slide, and this slide is all about, you just gone. And your half an hour presentation is over in 12 minutes.
That's right. You're looking down the clock going, oh, crap.
Yeah. Now, I know because I practice my talk beforehand.
Yep.
I know places in there where I need to pause.
Yep.
And, take a breath, make sure that I'm on track. I know the timing of where I should be, because nobody likes a 20-minute talk that goes on for 45 minutes.
Sure, yeah.
So, I'm cognizant of where I am in the talk and where I need to be. And, I can speed up or slow down based on that. There's all kinds of little things that you can do, but most of it is just practice.
Practice is definitely something you have to do. You should know how long your presentation is going to be, give or take 5 minutes, every single time that you give it. And I practice my presentations before every single time, at least 3 or 4 times the 2 days beforehand. But the thing, you're talking about the thing for me, and this is a free tip for any of you guys who do any public speaking. Jim, do you know why we do the thing?
Why?
It's a mental placeholder while we think about what we're going to say next. It's the way of our brain stopping us, and because we want to keep making sound, because we're supposed to be talking, we want to keep making sound, we make this non-committal sound.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because I just blurt shit out. So.
But the key that I tell people who want to know about how to speak better publicly is this. Keep in mind that the audience is there to listen to you. So if you just stop talking, they'll keep listening. And that's the key. Listen to any professional speaker. For example, I love, and people are going to jump on me about this, I love listening to Rush Limbaugh. He's a complete asshat who just should not be allowed to speak, but the way he speaks, the sound of his voice, his cadence, the way he puts words together is really, really well done. And you'll notice for every good public speaker, every now and then if you've been listening to the show over the last 30 seconds, I've stopped 6 different times. So I can think about what I'm going to say next. And the audience is still listening. I haven't said once. You say when you're rushing and don't know what you're about to say next. If you always know what you're going to say next, you'll never say
Well, that was very informative.
I hope so. Brian Monroe says, Sean, the reason people say is because they have to keep talking, as they've learned bad habits when they're growing up, as friends or family would not let them get a word in edgewise. That's certainly possible.
Yep.
But the key is just stop talking. The audience will not get up and leave. We have this fear of what they call on radio dead air. But if you listen to good radio voices, you listen to people on CBC or PBS, they stop talking on a regular basis to gather their thoughts and to speak more clearly and to know what they're going to say next. It's very effective. That's the one thing I always tell folks about public speaking.
Well, and that's, when you look at public speaking and you look at the speed that you're speaking.
Yeah.
A lot of that, if you're methodical, not boring, but methodical about the way and the points that you're trying to get across, then I guess you're not speeding up to the point where you need to say
Have you been accused of speaking too fast?
In my early talks, yeah.
No. It's something I've heard from a lot of people in my private life, not my personal, in my personal private life, not publicly. Nova Scotians, I didn't realize this until someone told it to me. Nova Scotians tend to talk very fast. I don't know why that is. We're generally quite a laid-back people. But when we speak, we tend to run our words together. My grandfather was a notorious mumbler. My grandfather was just one long run-on sentence. I had to have a translator for my grandfather when I was a kid. I had no idea what he was saying. And so you have to learn to slow down and speak clearly and concisely. In private, I've been told by Sly, I've been told by a lot of people, sorry, I didn't understand what you said. You're speaking too fast. I have to remind myself to slow down. So that's definitely something that you can practice when you're doing public speaking. Just speak slower.
There you go.
But it is funny that public speaking is like one of the most feared things for people to do. Like just behind dying is public speaking, for the things that people fear the most, which is really, yikes, Some people would rather die than speak in public, but yeah, you and I, we just love speaking in public.
Monika's like that. She won't speak in public. Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
No.
If we were sitting on stage, and I've done this a number of times too, on a panel or, whatever, 3 or 4 people up on stage, and, you start talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it also helps if you're a natural talker too. Not everyone is a natural talker. That's one of the things too. Jim has a story on the Loop at loopinsight.com. Become a better public speaker. Links to a website by Sarah Wachter-Boxter. I'm not what the hell that was all about, but she got some really interesting. It's a funny story, but some interesting and good advice about how to become a better public speaker. And everyone can do it. One of the other things I tell folks is, I don't know if we have in Canada, but I know they have in the States, Toastmasters. There's an organization that will help you learn to speak better called Toastmasters. There's not just for people who are already good public speakers, but if you want to learn to become a good public speaker, if you want to become a better teacher, just a better person in front of crowds of people, check out Toastmasters.com. Folks, we've been talking to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast called Amplified. Him and Dan Benjamin did a show yesterday called I'm Not Allowed to Have Tools. It's available on the iTunes store. Do search for Amplified. Jim, thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy, for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Have a good night. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you very much to Jim. Now I'm going to boot him out of the chat room or whatever I got to boot him out of. I hope I got that audio. Don't forget, if you, for those folks who may have tuned in late, we have a secret Santa who's given us money, cold, hard cash that we're going to be giving away later on tonight's show and every other show or every show up until the 20th anniversary of the Mac broadcast on March 19th, 2014. $50. I don't get to keep any of it. He's making me give $50 away every night for the next 4 weeks. So make sure you get your entry form in. Go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. The top of the page, there's the entry form for the contest. That drops your name into a virtual hat. And then on the March 19th show, we'll do a drawing for the 20th anniversary prize draw. 16 companies are involved in this, and I can't be happier that all these companies are going to be involved in handing out prizes to you. Pad and Quill, Boink Software, Tidbits, Tom Bin, Glovely, Smile Software, Mac Fun, Scotty Vest, Danny P, Pixelmator, Topaz Labs, Primo Vista, EverDoc Fuse Designs, Connects, Nifty Drives, and Backblaze are all giving away stuff on March 19th. If you want to get into the prize draw for tonight's show, you still have time. After the interview, after the pre-recorded interview I'm about to do with Ken Burns, the documentarian Ken Burns, I'll do a draw for $50 in cold, hard U.S. cash for a lucky Your Mac Life listener. So stay tuned for that. All that and much, much more coming up. This is Your Mac Life. Hey folks, this is Sean King from Your Mac Life. I'm on the phone now with, I've already said it, I'm an unrepentant fanboy of this gentleman, Mr. Ken Burns, the documentarian. Mr. Burns, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Please call me Ken, Sean.
I will. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ken, you've been doing this. You must be the youngest 60-year-old I've ever seen.
Well, you know, I like to say that I've got the best job in the country. I really firmly believe it. I'm always happy to be contradicted by someone else who feels that their job is the best. But, it must keep me young. I'm a grandfather, soon to be twice over, and I did cross the 60th mile marker, and I've never been busier in my life. I'm working on 7 film projects at once. We're doing this app. I've got 2 independent book projects as well as some other book projects connected with the films. And so I think I'm just kind of greedy for creation and as excited as I've ever been in my professional life.
Good for you. Folks, the website, there's 2 of them. There's the one for the app, which is kenburns.com. There's also the PBS website, pbs.org/Ken Burns. Now, you're based out of New Hampshire, aren't you, Mr. Burns? It's Ken.
I have. I've lived in a tiny little village in New Hampshire for 35 years. I thought I may have to make a decision, almost like a vow of going into the seminary, a vow of anonymity and poverty, if I was going to stay doing what I love doing, which was working in public television, becoming a documentary filmmaker, strike 2, and focusing in American history, strike 3, you're out. So I did move from New York to there to finish my first film. It was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Feature Documentary, a 1-hour film on the Brooklyn Bridge. And the best decision I ever made was to stay in New Hampshire. Everyone said, oh, you're moving back to New York, you're going to move to LA. And I said, no, I like the focus here. And so I've been able to assemble a community of really talented filmmakers who have helped me. And I've spent the last 35 years in this beautiful town working really hard, nose to the grindstone, trying to tell stories in American history.
Does this mean that you are now an avowed Red Sox fan?
Well, I moved to New England in '71, having sort of abandoned baseball after '68. It was a countercultural thing. And so the Mets victory in '69 was sort of a news story for me. I'm completely on the dark side of the moon in '70, '71. But then, I had a friend, and he had a color TV set. He was watching a baseball game, and I went to myself, I love this game, and I'd played it since I was as young as I could remember. And, of course, I was back in, and what I was watching was the Red Sox, and it was, Jim Rice and Carl Yastrzemski and Carlton Fisk and Fred Lynn, and I've been a Red Sox fan ever since.
Just want to make sure, full disclosure, I'm a Yankees fan, so you can hang up if you'd like.
No, I'm perfectly happy. I'm particularly happy this year as we are the reigning world champions, and and while you might have 27, we've had 3 in the last 9 years.
Pretty spectacular, yeah. I mean, considering what they went through, and folks, if you haven't had a chance, and you've got to, go on Netflix, go on pbs.org, wherever you have to. It's one of the things I love about your documentaries is they're so accessible to those folks who may not be fans of that thing. Baseball is a perfect example. I've just watched the baseball documentary probably 4 times now, and on 2 occasions with people who weren't baseball fans. And
yeah, well, I made it for them. I knew you'd come along. I remember a woman came up to me and said, "I just loved your Civil War series. What are you working on now?" And I said, "Well, we're doing a big history of baseball." She goes, "Oh, my husband and son will like this." And I said, "I'm making it for you." Yeah. And she goes, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, no." And I said, "So you're a military history fan?" She goes, "Oh, no, I just love the stories in your film." Yeah. And so I said, "Watch this." And she wrote me the kindest letter after the baseball series was there and said, "You're absolutely right." And that's what it is. If you tell human stories, it doesn't matter whether it's about advanced calculus or baseball or jazz or Huey Long or Thomas Jefferson or the Civil War, you're going to collect people who are going to be interested who didn't think they were interested in it.
Please don't do a documentary about advanced calculus.
I promise you I won't. I just said that as the outer reaches of my solar system. But I think if challenged, you could. And if you just think about, there have been various films in which advanced calculus have been at the heart of inner city school kids triumphing and turned into a great story.
It's interesting to watch your I don't want to say growth as a filmmaker because I don't know that much about it, but to watch them from the beginning, some of the earlier ones, all the way through to the ones you've been doing recently. I think of jazz. There is obviously a common way of doing these documentaries. Is this intentional? Is this the easiest way you can tell the story, or is this the natural way of Ken Burns telling stories?
It's a combination of both, because I think when you recognize style and analyze what style is just the authentic or the organic application of technique, technique being the tools of the trade, right? If they're done falsely, you see it. If they're done authentically, you can stand in a room of Picasso paintings and go, wow, I see the same person painted these paintings. That's authentic style. They're still using the same techniques. They're just applying it. So I hope I've matured as a filmmaker, but I think there are certain responses and ways of solving the problems, the myriad problems of how you make the past come alive, whatever the subject, Brooklyn Bridge, jazz, or the Dust Bowl, that are the same. And so I think we've evolved along that way, but in a way we're using the same tools. Hopefully we just got a little bit better at using those tools.
I think for most people, your most famous tool, and the way a lot of us were introduced to you, is the so-called Ken Burns effect. We'd seen panning before. We had seen zooming. Why were you the first guy to ever do pan and zoom?
Well, it's not so much that. It's been immortalized by Steve Jobs, who called me into Cupertino, California in 2002 and said, with December, next month, January of 2003, all Mac computers will have this ability to pan and zoom through photographs. And our working title is the Ken Burns effect, and that sort of took off. That's something I had been doing since the late 70s, and it was a very complicated way to try to will old photographs alive, to take a still photograph, to trust that it had once had a past and would maybe have a future, that it also had sound attached to it, that I could treat that old photograph as if I was a Hollywood feature film with a master shot that would include a long shot, a medium, close-up, a tilt, a pan, a reveal, meaning a zoom out, inserts of details, and to not only see it and re-photograph it that way, but also to listen to it with sound effects, with complicated music, with not only third-person narration, but first-person voices reading diaries and journals, all of them an attempt to bring it alive. That's the sort of the real Ken Burns effect, to use it. I mean, it's so many people who work with me. I feel ashamed to sort of try to claim a kind of ownership for it, but it's part of how we take the dynamic of still photographs, which are still the DNA, the building blocks of our films, even if they're contemporary and there's lots of modern footage. How we work to will that past alive, to wake the dead, if you will.
I think it's a great way to describe it too, is that the Ken Burns effect isn't just the pan and zoom of a particular photograph. It's all those other things wrapped around it, because we often see them on when we open up iPhoto or iMovie, and it starts doing that, and you think, oh, it doesn't work. Then you add narration, then you add a voiceover, then you add effects, and then it becomes, as you say, it comes alive.
Well, there's a certain satisfaction in knowing that I've saved millions of bar mitzvahs, vacations, birthdays, and certain other celebrations. But for me, it's so much deeper and complicated stuff within my own work that's most important to me. And I'm grateful that Steve and I became friends. I'm grateful that they did that. I was not paid for it. I was given equipment that I in turn gave away to nonprofits. If anyone has some lingering sort of financial arrangement questions about that. And so I feel, clean about the relationship to Apple in that regard, and just sort of thrilled that it's been helpful to folks. I mean, I do have people stop me in the airports and say, man, you saved my vacation. I mean, my dad's 80th birthday. Thank you so much. And I said, it's not me.
Folks, talking to Ken Burns, documentarian. The website is kenburns.com, about the app, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Also, only go to this URL if you have a weekend, pbs.org/Ken Burns. There is so much on that website, Ken. That is just read. It's amazing.
Here's what happened, is that every time we made a film, PBS, I'm so proud to be involved in PBS. And remember, those initials stand for public, and I like the idea of something being public. That is, something held in some kind of trust. Broadcasting, and then it isn't system, it's service, the idea that you're helping other people. So when you finish a film, it isn't just broadcast. It lives in schools. Like today's a school day in America, and there may be 2,500 classrooms that are showing parts of the Civil War, which is a 24-year-old film. That's good news to me. So every time we made a film, we did a website. And after a while, I said, but these websites don't talk to each other. Couldn't we aggregate them all together? So a nonprofit called the Better Angels Society that I'd helped to start following Lincoln's first inaugural, where he was trying to appeal to the better angels of our nature, helped us sort of create this website that merged all of them together, gave us an economy of scale, which means each subsequent website for each new film can be added. And they can be cross-referenced. It used to be you go into the Civil War website, you could cross-reference race or women or labor or whatever it would be, but you couldn't go between the films. Now you can. And while it's principally an educational tool, and there's lots there, lessons plans for teachers and student guides for students and photographs and readings and questions and things like that, it's a pretty immersive experience for an individual visiting it, and it's terrifically wonderful, as you say, to curl up on a cold winter evening and just sort of go run through the fields of history. But the app then was something that we created in a kind of response to that, a new way of reconfiguring a relationship to the work I've done.
Let's talk about the app. This is the first time you've done something in the digital realm. Am I correct?
Yes, indeed. And it was really time. I'd been chomping at the bit. We'd always been aware of, and had other platforms and downloadable aspects to the films, and of course the websites existing at PBS. But this was a way for me to curate some of my work. After working since the late 70s in American history, you begin to see things and you want to talk about those things. And so essentially what the app is a very cool way for me to curate thematically my films. So I'm like a DJ making mixtapes, curating sort of sequences on different themes, on inspiration, on art, on war, on politics, on hard times, on race, all of the themes that have animated the films, and sometimes animate all of the films that I've done, and at the same time do them out of time, so that if a race mixtape might have a 2 or 3 minute scene from a film followed by a clip from a film that was made 15 years before that. And what you see is new relationships are established, and it's just been really fun to develop it. Very exciting. I've been able to add some commentary to it. It was designed by Big Spaceship, which is a wonderful design firm. The whole thing was produced by Don McKinnon, who invented Hear Music and is just one of the great guys on our planet, and produced in-house by one of my longtime associates, Sarah Botstein. And we just sort of loved this thing and went to a group called Red Glass Pictures, who came up to my barn in New Hampshire and filmed me with a green screen, and then edited my introductions to not only the whole app, but to many of the different to all of the mixtapes, and to many of the scenes within the mixtapes. And so what you have is somebody able to look back and say, here's some patterns, here's some things I've noticed in American history. And this is something that we can add to. As each new film is completed, we'll add it to the timeline, and we'll make new mixtapes, and it will be a constantly evolving, wonderful tool for folks. And what's been so startling to me is, after having worked on it, and like an ostrich had my head in the sand for a long time, deeply involved with the work I was doing, and on this, we came out and everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. Apple loves it. The reviews have been really nice. Mm-hmm. We've had great feedback from folks, and I'm just sort of thrilled to start a different kind of conversation.
I think that was one of the most interesting, or at least the first most interesting thing I saw when I was playing around with the app, was that there's Ken Burns. He's right there. Is this the first time you've been front and center of the camera?
Well, you know, I've done a lot of public speaking since I became a filmmaker, and I've also, you know, had films made about us that PBS has done to accompany the big projects that we've done. But this was an ability for me to go in and say, I've kept myself out of my films. Yeah. You know, when I do interviews with people, you don't hear my questions. You just hear the answers, and they're put into these very complex narratives that are sometimes as complicated as Russian novels in the way we sort of design and structure them. But I want to tell you what I've seen. I don't believe there's cycles to history. I don't believe you're condemned to repeat what you don't remember, as is famously said. But I do think that human nature is the same, and that therefore the things that occur and reoccur, there are certain patterns. And this is what I've noticed in American history, from being, you know, in the deep end of the pool for decades now, struggling with both the glory and some of the difficulties of America, from its exceptionalism to some of its glaring faults, its original sin of race, for example. So here, let me just curate something, the way you do if you were entertaining at home and, you know, you had a big record collection. You wouldn't play every album, every tune from every album. You'd say, no, let me play this from Abbey Road, and let me then jump to this from Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. Let me go to this from Some Girls of the Rolling Stones, and let me go up to some hip-hop that I particularly like, and let me just play this classical piece. That's sort of what this is, and it has that kind of excitement and enthusiasm, and it's so beautifully designed, I think, and I can't take credit for it other than I tried to explain to the people that I see numbers and chronological dates in history visually, that there's something. And so when you immediately come on to download the app, you see this timeline of little globes, and you can move in closer to them, and a parallax feature permits them to seem almost like they're floating in space. And each one is a little story, and if you drag a story up, you'll find it's part of the race or innovation or art or hard times playlist. If you drag it down, you find it's one of 3 or 4 along the timeline that are from a particular film, and it gives you the date of that film and the opportunity to go and buy that film if you want to, or download it if you want to, or go to PBS and visit that website you were talking about. So it's got multi-functions, and it's also pretty simple and elegant to use, and it's pretty cool. And I've watched sort of older folks who were sort of harumphing about why Ken Burns suddenly decided to go digital, suddenly go, whoa, that's pretty neat. And I've watched 15-year-olds who are like, what, history? Yeah. Sort of take it and suddenly disappear for a few hours and say, hey, man, that's pretty cool. And then in between, you know, we had a launch last week, 10 days ago, in New York at the Apple Store in Soho, and Stephen Colbert came and interviewed me, out of character, interviewed me about it. And I've been on the show a few times. I have great admiration for him. And we just spent an hour and a half with this crowd, the sold-out crowd, and had the best time sort of celebrating kind of the geekiness of loving history.
It's interesting you say the geekiness of loving history. I think part of it is that we're not taught history properly. There's a quote of Mary
No.
Burns. Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding me? I mean, you know what? If you say history to most people, it's like homework.
Yeah.
You know, it's dry dates and facts and events. It's not this great emotional archaeology that I've been involved in. And the word history is mostly made up of the word story, which is the way all human beings, including you and me right now, talk to one another. Honey, how was your day? Does not go, I backed the car slowly down the driveway, avoiding the garbage can at the curb, unless, of course, somebody hits you at that point, in which case that's exactly the way you tell the story. Well, no, we cut to the chase. We edit. We understand Aristotelian poetics. And somehow we've gotten so, no, it's a boring, drudgery thing. And I've said, wait a second. I agree with what Harry Truman said, that the only thing that's really new is the history don't know. Another way of saying that is, how can you possibly know where you are and where you're going if you don't know where you've been? So paradoxically, the past, which is gone, we'll never get it back. But that's not what history is. History is the set of the questions we in the present ask of the past. And so it's informed, however consciously or subconsciously, with our fears and our anxieties, but also our hopes and our dreams. And so that conversation with the past is very much about who we are now. So another way of doing this, and I don't mean to get off too much on a tangent, but this is what's so fun about this app, is that if I told you that I'd been working for several years on a film about single-issue political campaigns that metastasized with horrible unintended consequences, about the demonization of recent immigrant groups to the United States, about smear campaigns during presidential election cycles, about a whole group of people who felt they'd lost control of their country and want to take it back, you'd say, geez, can you stop doing history? You're talking about our current political scene.
Exactly. Yeah.
But those are only 4 themes that are part of a big film we did a few years ago on the history of Prohibition.
Yeah.
And you go, wait a second, Prohibition, that's flappers and gangsters.
Yeah.
And we're distracted. Our conventional wisdom allows us to be distracted by the sexiness of those flappers and the violence and danger of those gangsters. And we have them, and they are dangerous, and they are sexy. But the more interesting thing is the way in which all of those very contemporary themes that seem in that distant era of Prohibition are suddenly so contemporary. And that's only 4. I could go on and name you 12. So all of a sudden you realize the past isn't past. It's right now. You know, the Civil War is about imperial presidency and weapons of mass destruction and, shoddy military contractors, delivering terrible goods to the military. I mean, it's all these things that we're arguing about right now. And so that tells you the way in which history is such an important guide to not only what went on, so you can get an A+, but where we are now, and more importantly, where we're going. And that's kind of paradoxical.
I always use that exact example of the Prohibition story because we think we know what Prohibition was. Oh, it was a dumb idea, getting rid of it. I'm Canadian, so I think getting rid of beer, it wouldn't happen in my country. But it's knowing the history of what happened before Prohibition. It was fascinating watching. I didn't know that part of the history.
Well, nobody knows it, and this is what it was, and this was the manifestation of a group not dissimilar to the Tea Party, who was disturbed by the changing character of America. In this case, it was Catholic, Southern and Central Europeans moving to the United States, bringing a kind of alien culture, moving into the cities, and this was a last gasp attempt to try to control them. And this was a single-issue political campaign in the way, flag issues and gun issues and abortion issues are right now, and it spilled into presidential politics, and it just resonated with everything that's going on today. So we think right now everything's new and nobody's ever faced this before, and suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, we've been through this before, and this isn't the only time either. People, when the '08 meltdown happened, said, we're in a depression. I said, no, we're not. In many cities in America during the actual depression, the animals in the zoo were shot and the meat distributed to the poor. When that happens here, then you can say we're in a depression. Now, all of a sudden, people shut up, and you begin to realize that having some modicum of historical understanding from having spent a few years working on the Roosevelts, our next big series coming out this fall, or having done Jazz or the Dust Bowl or Prohibition or any number of films and dealt with the 1930s. You've got a leg up. You can put things in perspective.
You seem to be coming closer to present day. 2013, PBS broadcast the Central Park Five, which for those folks who don't know, please Google it and find out what that was all about. Your previous work seemed to be in the distant past, distant not in the BC sense, but in the 1920s and prior to that. Is that a personal choice, or is that just the...
No. In fact, I could tell you that my second film on the Shakers, done in the early 80s, started in the mid-1700s and came all the way up to the present. Okay. Ended with a Shaker auction of a chair. That the baseball series that I did in '94 also began in the the mid-18th century, and came all the way up to the present. So did Jazz. I just picked the Central Park Five, or it picked me. My daughter was writing a book on it, and I found it so fascinating that I wanted to tell the story. And it's a kind of a recent history, and it's still kind of unsettled, so it has a new edgy thing, but it's still dealing with the same old questions of race. So it's both different, but also the same main issue in America, which is race. Coming
out of left field, should Barry Bonds be in the Hall of Fame?
No, absolutely not. I don't have a vote, so this is just an abstract conversation. But it's a really good and important question. He'd probably deserve to be in it before he made the fateful decision to take steroids. He'd already more than qualified, as did Roger Clemens. The more important question is, less my opinion, no, he shouldn't, then I don't think he will. Maybe someday we'll change our perspective. But I believe that in some ways he would have gotten in, and no question he would have gotten in, and Roger Clemens would have gotten in just based on their pre-steroids performance. But you will definitely not see Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire in the Hall of Fame, and that's absolutely right. And I don't think you'll see Pete Rose either, or maybe you'll see him after he dies. That was my sort of Solomon-like discussion about Pete Rose, is that maybe he gets elected after he's dead.
That's what I've been saying when I discuss among my sports friends. Yes, some of them should be in from a pure number standpoint, but I don't believe that they will until they, in fact, have passed. In other words, don't reward them for...
Yeah, here's the dilemma with Barry Bonds, is as we were working on our update of the baseball series called The 10th Inning, that was trying to wrestle with the steroids and the strike and the other things that took place. Remember when our baseball series came out in 1994, we were the only baseball in the fall there. Right, the strike had ended it. And we were sort of saying, whoa, what happened to this Valentine, to this sport? What's going on? And so we felt compelled a few years later, prompted in large part by the fact that the Boston Red Sox won the World Series, to sort of gather the 90s and the aughts together into a film that we called The 10th Inning. It was very clear that most baseball professionals felt that Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player that's ever played the game. That is to say, better than Babe Ruth, better than Willie Mays, better than all of that. But how do you then make an accurate decision based on the steroids performance, particularly when he went on clearly after he'd begun to take steroids and break the kind of records that he broke, the cherished records of baseball. But, you can look on the bright side and say, nobody had a 56-game hitting strike. Nobody hit over 400. No pitcher hit, had a 30-game season. Nobody struck out 300 people. So it seemed to be that these muscle-bound guys just hit the ball 15 feet farther and it went out of the park rather than being a long fly ball. And that disrupted one aspect of it. But many of the cherished symbols of baseball remain the same. And we can now say that there will always be struggling to stay ahead of the chemists and the cheaters. We're basically looking at a steroids era that's in the rearview mirror, and a lot of that has to do with Major League Baseball. They were the slowest, to get up to speed, but now they're the toughest in terms of drug policy, and the suspension of A-Rod for the entire 2014 season is testament to their grit and determination, and for that you have to take your cap off to Bud Selig.
Your future releases, I think one of the most interesting ones that you're going to be releasing, according to Wikipedia, in 2016 is Vietnam. I think that's going to be a
Yeah,
fast.
we're deep in the editing of that. It may be our longest film. It may be upwards of 10 episodes and 20 hours. We've done almost 100 interviews, not only with Marines and Army guys and nurses and helicopter pilots and bombers and draft resistors and draft dodgers and diplomats and journalists of the time, but also with North Vietnamese soldiers and South Vietnamese soldiers. So we're able to triangulate this very complicated war, and new scholarship has just exploded the conventional wisdom about it. We're sort of we feel like we're surfers on a wave of new academic discoveries that will, I think, have people going, wow, I had no idea.
Has technology made your job as the kind of documentarian you are easier, or has it made it like a fire hose you're trying to sift information out of?
It's both. That's a really, really good question. I miss the old days where I took my 2-scoop lamps and my magnetic easel with, little magnets and attached the photograph and filmed it myself. Now, of course, you download it or you go to the archive and you scan it, you bring it back, it gets zoomed with a program. So there's a tyranny of choice there. There's also an incredible speed that you're permitted. You can see what a dissolve looks like. You don't have to wait until the final process. You can see what a fade out looks like. You can play around with stuff. So on balance, it's been tremendously positive. But there also, you want to make sure that the technological tail is not wagging the dog, and sometimes that's the case, and you got to be very, very careful. And so we've stayed in New Hampshire. We've replaced our analog editing Steenbeck machines with Avid computers, or Avid software systems, but we're trying to keep that same homemade, hands-on sense of filmmaking, and I feel that we've been able to do it. That they're personal, that they represent vision and not are seduced by the bells and whistles that this digital age permits us to do. Where you go, wow, that's a really cool title sequence, but the film's not so good. Where it just meant that people just wasted too much time. We just like to have simple titles and say, here's our film, and then focus on how you tell a complicated, intertwined story, and more importantly, how you tell it well, and particularly for that person that doesn't know anything about it. You just say, I'm making it for you. I'm not making it for the cognoscenti. I'm making it for you, just a curious but ignorant person, and you want to aim high and trust their intelligence. And I think that's why we've gotten so many millions of viewers, tens of millions of viewers, when people have told us, it's an MTV thing. No one will watch the Civil War. That's 25 years ago. Or, 5 years ago when the war came out, nobody will watch that. It's all YouTube. Well, tens of millions of people did, and it just showed you how hungry they were for content. And now it's sort of come full circle. What are we doing now? We're binging. We're downloading an entire House of Cards and watching it in gigantic gulps. And that's terrific for me because it's just telling you that we're starved for that kind of take over my life for a little bit. We're given, there's so many choices that we have. There's so many things out there. There's no way to curate our own lives. And so when people come in and say, hey, relax, you know what you're doing this Saturday afternoon? You're watching 6 episodes of this, or you're watching the entire Roosevelt series, and just sit back. We'll let it wash over you, and then all of a sudden, when you're done, you feel a kind of satisfaction. Mm-hmm. You know something. You know a lot of things you didn't know before. Hopefully, it's been artfully done, and you suddenly have something you can talk about to your friends.
There's a quote, my last question, there's a quote on the pbs.org/Ken Burns site. The late historian Stephen Ambrose said of his films, more Americans get their history from Ken Burns than any other source. Is that a good thing?
I don't know. Yeah, sure, why not? I can tell you that I agonize about how good our history is. We use the best scholars when we work on these things. They vet it to make sure we're telling you the truth, but at the same time, I keep it to myself because this isn't scholarship. This isn't some paper that's going to appear in a scientific journal. This is, in fact, a popular, entertaining film that's going to be seen by millions of people. So I'm trying to tell a story, but I want to get that story right. And the fact that many people see it, that's terrific. I'm much harder on myself than Steve Ambrose's kind comment would suggest that I'm, beholden. But I feel that pressure to get it right and to tell a good story.
But doesn't that mean our education system is failing students?
Not at all, not at all. Because what you find, Shelby Foote called me up after the Civil War had been on a half a year, and he said, "Ken, you made me a millionaire." That meant people had watched my 11-and-a-half series on the Civil War, went and bought a 3-volume, 3,000-page narrative about the Civil War in so many copies that the royalties made Shelby Foote a millionaire several times over. That's a terrific thing. And what we find is that our films always sponsor the buying of books, and not just our companion books, but books related to the subject. So it's just a way of priming the pump. And if that's what you need to do in an increasingly visual culture, why sort of wring your hands and say, "Oh, all is lost"? Why not say, "Wow, this is an opportunity"? If a picture is worth 1,000 words, isn't that saying something about a picture? Why are we suddenly opposed to a picture if it has that much value? Now, maybe in our oversaturated culture, it's been devalued to 250 words, but that's still a lot. And sometimes, as we say, something speaks volumes. So, I'm looking for that meaning. I'm trying to find that meaning. And if you can do that, what if, we have Meryl Streep reading the voice of Eleanor Roosevelt. Wow. This is stuff that's been memoirs and letters and journals that historians have had to, over the course of history. They've had her newsreels, but they've just read her voice on cold type. What if you have the greatest actor of our lifetime reading them and bringing them alive? I've watched 80-year-old scholars weep hearing Meryl Streep bring to life a quote. And what if you're adding a picture of her or adding a picture of the things she's talking about together, and all of a sudden it's integrated into something that is a sweeping panorama of, more than a century of American life, from 1858 when TR was born to 62 when ER died. And all that went before it, wars and politics and internal personal dramas and depressions and world wars, all of this stuff happening. Wouldn't that be something? And we've done it.
I think that encapsulates the app. Folks, go to kenburns.com. Go to the website, iTunes app. kenburns.com is the website. On iTunes, it's the Ken Burns app. Bringing history to life. I sat here when I was playing around with the app with our 12-year-old, and it's a very pokeable app. In other words, you don't just sit there and you just watch it as if it was on television. You're poking around and seeing those themes that you're talking about, and sliding around in the app in a organic kind of way, but seeing those connections that you were talking about, those patterns that you were talking about. The app is free on the iTunes store off the kenburns.com website. And you get, I think, about 30 minutes of video on the app?
What you get is the innovation playlist, and then if you want more, which we hope you will, you've got a $9.90, a $10 charge, and then you've got access to everything else. And as we improve it and add to it and add new playlists, you'll be part of that as well. And we've been yelled at first we were sort of anxious about it. We've now been yelled at by magazines and reviewers saying it's too cheap. So that beats me. I don't know what it is. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it'll be well worth the expenditure and provide lots of fun time. And as you say, I think it is something that not only are you submitting to my playlist, but you can also take control of it as well and create your own playlist in a way. You can jump from one area to another, or say I'm interested in this, and all of a sudden you're roaming through American history. There was a great novel that Kurt Vonnegut wrote called Slaughterhouse-Five, and its main character, Billy Pilgrim, was unstuck in time. What I think that this app allows you to do is become unstuck in time in the best way possible, to go ahead, to jump back, to immerse yourself in this moment, to see something from 30,000 feet, to be in the middle of something intimately, to go back and forth, to understand patterns, to just see the randomness of stuff. And that to me was exciting.
There are a whole list on pbs.org of Ken Burns' documentaries. Some of them you may not have heard about. I had never heard of Horatio's Drive, and that's a fascinating story. I've read some of the history, the cross-country trip with Dwight D. Eisenhower I've read those stories, but to see that, that's my next.
Well, you know, the crazy thing is that Americans love their automobiles and love to be first, and no one knows the first cross-country automobile trip that took place in 1903, and we discovered it and discovered the letters and got Tom Hanks to read these wonderful letters sent back by Horatio Nelson Jackson as he tried to make his way across the country, and of course everything that could go wrong did go wrong because there were no roads, and he didn't even have a driver's license. So it's a hilarious story.
You tell stories. That's the highest compliment I can give someone is that they're a storyteller, because I love stories. I love telling stories, listening to stories. So I appreciate the effort that you've gone through all of these years for all of the amazing stories that you've told. So folks, I want to say again, go to kenburns.com, go to the iTunes store. It's the easiest $10 you'll spend buying the Ken Burns app on the iTunes store. Ken Burns, documentarian, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Welcome back, folks. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview with Ken Burns. I know I just had an absolute blast talking to the guy. It was a 45-minute interview. We actually talked off tape for about another hour, 45 minutes to an hour afterwards, just chatting. It was great. It was such an honor, such a pleasure to talk to him. I've been a huge fan of all of his documentaries. I was saying on IRC during the pre-taped interview, if I'm flipping channels and the local PBS station is showing anything by Ken Burns, that's it. My day is done. I'm going to watch. I'll binge watch all of it. Prohibition, Civil War, jazz, baseball, doesn't matter. I've seen the baseball one, as I said during an interview, 4 times. I've seen Prohibition 3 times, jazz twice, Civil War once. The Vietnam one I'm really looking forward to. I love everything this guy does. So it was a huge honor for me to chat to him. Mo says, does PBS still broadcast entire series on weekend afternoons? Yeah, sometimes they do. It depends on the series. I know I've seen Masterpiece Theater and Downton Abbey and that kind of stuff. Sly says, great job, Sean. Thank you, Sly. It means a lot coming from you. Before we get to the prize draw, and don't forget, go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com, fill out the entry form. It's right above, and you get your name into the hat for the $50 cold hard cash draw that our Secret Santa is making me do. Did you guys see this story? Now, I don't know how many of you are Jimmy Fallon fans. How many of you have followed him from whatever show he's doing before to the Tonight Show? I've gotten, I don't want to say too old for late night TV, but disinterested in late night TV. And there was a thing on Twitter yesterday. 5 important things that happened on Jimmy Fallon last night. No, I guarantee you, nothing important happened on Jimmy Fallon. I would venture to say nothing important has ever happened on any late night talk show. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's just fluff. I don't care about it anymore. I literally, Jay Leno had been on the air for 22 years. I literally didn't watch a second of Jay Leno's show. His headline bits, his whatever things that popped up on YouTube, I never watched them. Same with Jimmy Fallon. Now this is This might be me being old. I just don't find Jimmy Fallon funny. I think his stuff is mostly juvenile. And that, maybe because I'm old and I don't find his stuff funny. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But there was this story today about how Jimmy Fallon apparently used to have an Apple MacBook on his desk with his old show. And now, horrors of horrors, it's no longer there. Well, what it is actually it's still an Apple laptop, but they've covered the logo. Okay, you know what? 20 years ago, Apple users stressed out about this kind of thing. Apple users cared about this kind of thing. Apple users, it mattered to us who used what Apple products, and we would talk about it. There were websites dedicated to it. But guess what, folks? Apple is the single most valuable company on the planet. It is in no danger of disappearing anytime soon. There is no need to obsess over what some celebrity does or does not use with his computing devices. It doesn't matter. And by you making it matter, 9 to 5 Mac, you make Mac users look like children. You make us look like our self-worth is wrapped up in what kind of laptop is on Jimmy Fallon's desk. Now, the vast majority of us don't care. But all it takes is one dumbass story like this to make people go, oh, look at those Mac users, they're doing it again. It doesn't matter. Ignore it. Grow up. Now, the facts behind the story are this. Apple was a company that gave what they call promotional considerations to Jimmy Fallon's show, whatever the hell it was called, previous. And what promotional considerations mean is we give you product, you use the product on the air, and put our name in the credits. Well, when Fallon moved to a different time slot in NBC, NBC said, hey, Apple, millions more people are going to be watching the show. We want you to pay to have your logo on Jimmy's desk. And Apple said, no, like Apple always does. I've talked to the person at Apple who does product placement. They don't pay for any of it. None of it. You don't see any paid product placement for Apple. Apple will give people stuff. Was it Independence Day? Remember the movie Independence Day with the PowerBook, with the virus that they uploaded, which was stupid. Apple gave them those laptops, those machines, in order to have the machine shown in the movie. But Apple doesn't pay for any of that. So this is all that's happened. NBC went to Apple and said, write us a check. Apple said no. NBC said, okay, we'll block it up. We've seen the same thing on Big Bang Theory. You'll often see Raj has got obviously a MacBook of some sort, and there's a glowing, almost round logo in the back, and they put a bullet hole decal over the Apple leaf to make it look like it's not an Apple laptop. Ooh. That's why. Because Apple won't pay CBS for the product placement. CBS then comes up with the logo. No big deal, no mystery. This happens all the time. You'll see this constantly. Watch the end of, watch a TV show that's got cars in it, some police drama. Notice if they use the exact same type of car all through the show. If every car in the show is a Ford. Fringe was notorious for that. Every single car that everybody drove in the TV show Fringe was always a Ford. There were no other cars in the Fringe universe. At the end of it, it says promotional considerations provided by Ford. That's the way it works. It's nothing to get excited about or worried about or stressed out about or anything about. Let it go. Oh, finally, I'm glad I got that off my chest. We have contest entries coming in fast and furious, but it's time to get out of here. Oh, for those folks who were asking last week, the SIG isn't on tonight's show because she is off to a job interview. She was like 5:30, had to go downtown for a job interview. So, but I'm trying to make her, I'm forcing her to be here on the anniversary show. Don't forget the anniversary of the 20th anniversary of Macintosh Broadcasting is March 19th, 2014. Tell your family, tell your friends, wake the kids. We're going to give away thousands and thousands of dollars of fabulous prizes. All kinds of really, really cool stuff from all kinds of companies, and more companies are coming on board even as we speak. Pat and Quill is giving away 2 little pocketbooks for the iPhone. Boink Software is giving away 1 each of iStop Motion, Mac, Photo Magico, and Boink's TV. Take Control Books are giving away a 1-year subscription to the entire Take Control library. Tom Bin is giving away a Synapse 25 backpack. The folks at Glovely are giving away 5 pairs of the Glovely Classic touchscreen gloves. Smile Software is giving away 1 PDF Pen family pack and 1 text expander for Mac and iOS. The nice folks at Mac Fun are giving away 3 creative kits, including a bundle of Snap Heal Pro and Intensify Pro. Scotty Vest is giving away a Sev Pack jacket. Danny P is giving away an iPhone 5 leather wallet case. Pixelmator is giving away 5 copies of their excellent graphic app, Pixelmator. The nice folks at Topaz Labs are giving away a complete collection of photography enhancement and editing software valued at over $400. Primo Vista is giving away a bamboo iPhone case and 2 bamboo iPhone speakers. Fuse Design is giving away 2 EverDocs. Kinez is giving away 10 Caslet iPhone wallets. Nifty Drives is giving away 2 Nifty Drives. And Backblaze is giving away 3 one-year completely unlimited online backup subscriptions to Backblaze. So thanks very much to all of those companies for being involved in the 20th anniversary of Macintosh Broadcasting, again, March 19th. And we're giving away all of this stuff on that March 19th show. So you got to get your entry forms in before that March 19th show. Mosquito says, nice package, Sean. Sorry, is the camera pointed at my crotch? My apologies. I didn't realize it was pointed in the wrong place. So I don't know why I do that. I'm sorry. I hope Logan wasn't listening. I hope he's gone to bed, because I'm just, yeah, cinnamon. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I can't stop myself. So going to the virtual hat. Let me open up this folder. There are, let me look at this thing now. There are 1,340 names in the virtual hat. So I'm scrolling through as I'm looking at the video. I'm scrolling through over here, and I'm going up and down, and someone in the IRC chat room or the IRC chat will yell stop, and I will stop when I see. There we go. Monty says stop, and wait for this thing to finish up. Going to go to Brian Kelvin of Tupelo, Mississippi. Cool, Brian, you live in Tupelo, Mississippi. Brian is he's not even a subscriber. Damn it. I'm kidding. Brian Kelvin from Tupelo, Mississippi, congratulations. You won $50. Cold, hard cash. I'll send you an email later on after I get off the show tonight and tell you how to, I guess I'll PayPal the money to folks. Man, I can't do a check because it's going to be a PayPal. So hopefully you have a PayPal account. Otherwise, Brian will figure out some way to give you, I'll do it as an iTunes gift certificate or an Amazon gift certificate or however you want to do it. So congratulations to Brian Kelvin of Tupelo, Mississippi. Lovely little town. The area, the town itself, not so much. The area around it, very, very pretty. I loved riding a bike through Mississippi. Folks, that's it. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on the show this evening. Next week, tomorrow, I'm actually interviewing the folks at Distiller. Have you seen this? This is a really interesting idea. Basically, what I'm trying to do is to get you guys drunk. The website is drinkdistiller.com, and this is a really neat idea for an app. The app allows you to get recommendations about whiskey. It's interesting. Lots of folks, everyone knows about what whiskey. You don't know, but you've had whiskey. But you may not know what whiskey is, or you may have had really bad whiskey and don't ever want to drink whiskey again. But whiskey can actually be a very smooth beverage depending on what you like and what you buy. So I'm always interested to talk to people who know more about this. I'm a huge, especially Irish whiskey, huge Irish whiskey fan. And so when I saw this app, I contacted the creators. I'm going to interview them on tomorrow's, not tomorrow's show, sorry. I'm going to interview them tomorrow morning, and it will be on next week's show. So I'm excited about that, to be able to talk to the folks at Distiller. Drinkdistiller.com is the website. Distiller is the app on the iTunes Store. It's a free app, so go ahead and download it. Distiller off the iTunes Store. So that's it, folks. Until next week, I want to say thanks very much to all the folks in the IRC chat room for being tuned into the show. Thanks to all you folks who watch the video of the show, and especially to the thousands and thousands who tune in via the archive. Until next week, as always, I've been Sean King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!